NBC News reports that these changes might be tough for Democrats to consider. The Romney is reportedly in conversations with some Democrats. Democratic Gate told NBC News that I think there's momentum is growing quite a bit, and there's more interest because folks on the right want to do something good. And now Democrats and climate activists reacted with shock and anger at Joe Manchin's rejection of climate and energy investments under a party line spending package. They have blasted Manchin's move as one that would doom not just President Biden's agenda, but the future of the planet. The news comes just 2 weeks after the Supreme Court curbed the EPA power to regulate greenhouse gases from power plants, and as the Biden administration's climate strategy has taken a backseat to efforts to ramp up oil and gas production to fend off inflation. Democrats have struggled to pass a climate and energy package as part of the reconciliation bill that would require the support of all 50 Democrats, including Manchin. He had previously said if he could reach an agreement on climate, if legislation included elements helping both renewables and fossil fuels. Democratic Senator Tina Smith recently said in a statement that it's hard to feel optimistic that there is a way to getting a yes with Manchin on emissions, reductions, and clean power given the last year and a half. Manchin is joining every single Republican in stopping efforts to cut emissions and speed up this transition to clean energy. News of Manchin's rejections also left environmental activists and Democrats to pick up the pieces to try to find a potential path to cutting emissions. Without action from Congress, Biden's goal for curbing U.S. greenhouse gases by 50 to 52% below 2005 levels by the end of this decade. Folks, is Congress really going to send out stimulus checks this year? Well, here's the latest news on this. Americans who have been paying record prices for gas to fill up their cars may see a longed-for reprieve in some parts of the country. The last 3 months have seen a spike in fuel prices, hitting a national average of $5 a gallon on June 14th. It's posed a political problem for Joe Biden's administration, but since that record high, the national average has started to fall. According to AAA, there is some optimism that prices could go down even further. As inflation continues to rise even more, many economists are now pushing for the president to take executive action. Lawmakers like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and Chuck Schumer want President Biden to sign an executive order that will provide all Americans with recurring monthly stimulus checks. Now, these checks are supposed to be automatically deposited. So, to know if you're eligible for this fourth stimulus check, be sure to keep watching this video, because you definitely don't want to miss out on it. Janet Yellen has now defended President Biden's $2 trillion stimulus bill, despite criticism from the burst of government spending and helped accelerate the highest inflation in 40 years. Janet Yellen has helped the White House sell the $1.9 trillion American Rescue Plan, which pumped money directly into households, businesses, and local governments to keep them afloat during this time. Yellen's comments comes as Americans wrestle with the hottest inflation since 1981, which has quickly eroded consumers' purchasing power and President Biden's approval rating tumbling. The White House has identified supply chain bottlenecks and other crisis-induced disruptions in the economy for the recent price spikes, while GP lawmakers have pinned it on the president's massive spending agenda. The rising price of everyday goods is eating to worker pay and showing the U.S. economy needs a fast recovery. Now, Yellen argued that the alternative to huge government spending was an economic downturn that could match the Great Depression. Janet Yellen stated, given this uncertainty, the recovery packages sought to protect against tail risk. They were not tailored to address the median income. So as the crisis continues, lawmakers are insistent that inflation relief checks be sent out to help those that are struggling. And Representative Omar, along with other progressive Democratic lawmakers, have proposed legislation that would dole out regular stimulus checks through monthly payments of up to $1,200 for adults and $600 for children. Now, the legislation would actually provide $1,200 a month to people making $75,000 or less per year. The heads of households with an income of up to $112,000 will receive $1,200 under the program. And President Biden has announced that he is taking a hard look into forgiving some federal student loan debt, and the amount he is considering is less than $50,000 per borrower. The amount is lower than some top Democrats have been seeking since he took office. In a response to a question at the White House, Biden said, "I am considering dealing with some debt reduction, and I'm not considering $50,000 debt reduction, but I'm in the process of taking a hard look at whether or not there will be debt forgiveness. The president said he would have an answer on forgiving additional debt in the next couple of weeks. During his presidential campaign, President Biden said he would cancel $10,000 in student loan debt and called for Congress to act. He has extended the crisis-related pause on federal student loan repayment several times, most recently through August 31st. The White House has previously raised concerns that widespread federal student debt cancellation could face legal challenges if done through executive action. The president last year asked his team to evaluate his legal actions. pressure on Biden to act has been mounting as the midterm elections approach, and some Democrats like Chuck Schumer and Elizabeth Warren of Massachusetts have reiterated their calls for the president to cancel $50,000 in student loan debt. And Jen Psaki has said a decision on canceling student loan debt will be made between now and August 31st, when loan payments are set to resume. And some Republican lawmakers and organizations oppose extending the crisis-era pause, which saves some 41 million borrowers an estimated $5 billion a month in student loan interest payments. The pause was set to expire at the beginning of May. So folks, President Biden definitely has to do something about this and help out the American people with stimulus checks.
In ethanol blend, so that we reduce demand of oil, increase biofuels. It's a smaller strategy, but he's looking at every way he possibly can to try to address the problem. Ultimately, though, as you know, the solution lies in moving to clean energy. And so even as we're increasing supply right now, we have to accelerate the move and the technologies, which is what this budget represents, to clean.
Well, Vladimir Putin is certainly helping move us more expeditiously to address energy in a way that helps us deal with climate change. So, in the short term, however, as we said, there are significant challenges for families, and so anything we can do to help address that, I think, is going to be very important. One of the things that I have worked on that we've discussed in the past over the years is how we address energy efficiency. It's the cheapest, fastest way to deal with our energy needs. One of the biggest, as you know, the largest single energy user in the United States is the federal government. And one of the best things we could do is to promote energy savings performance contracts within the federal government. Now, because of the way CBO scores those contracts, it is challenging for departments to use those because they are not scored as savings, they are scored as costs. I think we ought to change that. So far, I've not been able to convince my colleagues that that's something that makes sense. But can you talk about, one of the things we saw during the Obama administration was a performance contracting challenge that resulted in 340 performance contracts and $8 billion in energy savings. Can you talk about the possibility of doing that kind of challenge again?
I would love to work with you on this because I think it is so important to be able to incentivize the installation of American-made products that end up reducing energy. It's such a triple win, and I think that particular challenge, if my numbers are right, created more than 30,000 jobs in American companies. So it's a win-win-win all the way around, and I would love to work with you on that because I love challenges, and I love